Um, keep in mind that these solutions are not mutually exclusive. In spite of this graphic here, what I think you're going to find as we go through this webinar is that you can have all of these solutions set up together or in a combination as you desire to provide the best experience for your users. So one of the things that you're going to get out of this is what is the most important solution for your firm and your users, and that's what you really should be trying to find. So let's look at who we've got here from Capensys. The hosts of the webinar today, Marion Deland, who's the Director of Courseware. I'm John Attinger, the Director of Security and Training, and Sue Passfield is the Director. And we welcome all of you to this webinar with a whole lot of people. Obviously, this is a topic that is very important to a lot of folks. So who is on the panel? Your panel of experts today, starting on the left, we have David Bullock from the UK. David is the Client Services Director at Tiger Eye Consulting. He joined them in January 2018 after 20 years working within the UK legal IT at firms which included Herbert Smith Freehills, Bond Dickinson, and he was the IT Director at Ward Hathaway until he moved over to Tiger Eye. Jennifer Parker is the Chief Experience Officer at Adaptive Solutions. She's been working in the legal industry for over 20 years. Prior to joining Adaptive in 2015, she was a hands-on business and IT professional in-house in both AmLaw 100 and 200 firms and served as the Director of Project Management, User Support, and Training. Also with us is Gilbert Mendoza, one of Cornerstone.IT's premier systems engineer. He is an iManage certified as a work document management engineer and a security policy manager. He's also a systems administrator. Gilbert has been in the IT profession for over 20 years, providing services to legal and corporate clients across the country. And we also have Brian Jones, who's the training manager at iManage, and he lives, eats, breathes, and sleeps iManage user adoption. And that was my description for him. So, a lot of firms are looking to upgrade iManage over the next 12 to 18 months. You've been asking a lot of questions about the best upgrade plan for your firm, so we've gathered this panel of experts to provide you with some insights that you may need. Let's start with a poll so we can get a sense of where you are and where you're coming from and maybe where you want to go. So I'm going to launch a poll, and that is, which flavor of iManage DMS do you currently have? Now, for those folks who are in the UK, just pretend that there's a U there in the word flavor. And welcome, of course, to everybody from the UK and everybody in the US. And if there's anybody from anywhere else, welcome to you as well. It looks like we've got some numbers coming in here. I'll hold this open for about another 10 seconds. We got 58% have voted. Tell us where you're coming from. Where are you right now? All right, I'm going to close the poll. And I'm going to share the results. It looks like we have 40% are on file site, or desk site rather, 75% are on file site, and 22% are already on WorkTen. Well, good, everybody. Thank you for your insights. And in particular, those folks who are on desk site and file site, you're going to be getting a lot of information about what might your next steps be. So, a little bit about all of the panelists, the companies that we work for, and then we'll jump right on in and start with a introduction of Brian, an update on what's going on with iManage, and then we're going to shoot ahead with the questions. So Capensys, we're a full service training organization. We can provide trainers for rollouts and for ongoing upskilling type of programs. Yes?
Share your screen.
Well, that might help. There you go. Does that help?
Yes.
Thank you. Capensys is a full-service training organization. We can provide trainers for all of the rollouts that you may have, including your upcoming iManage upgrade. We have e-learning tutorials and knowledge checks, marketing videos, little quick wows to help excite people about what's coming up around the iManage upgrade, communication templates so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have a strong focus on change management because, especially with WorkTen, you're looking at a new way of working, and it is incredibly important for them to understand what's going on and to address the workflows that they have, your users, I mean. We have a learning management system, and we also have a security awareness program. From the training perspective, we look at training in a number of different ways. We can provide whatever kind of training it is that you need, whether you want us to do full-blown on-site trainers in all of your offices for floor support and for training and for lunch and learns, we can do that. But we can also have quick start programs with different levels of training available, whether it's e-learning, whether it's e-learning with a learning management system, or whether it's e-learning with user support and on-site training as well. TigerEye, David, tell us a little bit about TigerEye.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm David from TigerEye, as John's mentioned. We're delighted to be with you this afternoon on this, and sorry, good morning to those of you in the States. We were established 13 years ago, as the slide suggests, and we are very much an iManage partner over in the UK. iManage is the heart of our business. We've got a wealth of experience both in legal, including myself and others in the team. And we're trusted advisors, really. We try and help firms make the right decision about where to go to next with their version of iManage, whether it's a brand new installation or whether it's existing version and going into something like WorkTen or looking to upgrade to the cloud. The team are iManage and Prince2 certified, and as the bottom point says, really, we're just really nice people to do business with. We want to work with you as an added value member of your team. We want to make sure that we do right by you and you get the best from us as well. Next slide, please, John. Our business strategy is we put you first, really. Around that, everything else flows and everything else works. But we put you first, and from that, we've sort of grown organically over the last few years. We're 20 in size now, and looking to actually expand further as we take on more and more new clients. So that's TigerEye.
Thank you very much, David. Adaptive Solutions.
Hi, this is Jennifer Parker. I'm with Adaptive Solutions. We were founded in 1998 by IT legal professionals and have grown and thrived since that founding. We work with over 400 law firms and 500 corporate legal departments worldwide. So we have a lot of experience in the legal space from both sides of the aisle, so to speak. And we do have a wide range of offerings, which you can see listed there. We also look at our engagements with our clients as true partnerships. So we're there to help you identify, implement, and support the things that are going to make the most business sense for your individual firm or department. I'm going to hit the next one. And then specifically in the iManage realm, we have a team, a large team of engineers, project managers, as well as business professionals, so that as we approach your iManage projects, we help you figure out, again, what are we trying to accomplish and how do we best do that given the technology tools available. And just a fun statistic, we have done 24 brand new iManage deployments in the last 24 months. On top of that, we've done a whole bunch of upgrades and moves to both new platforms like the 10 platform, as well as implementing some of the new iManage products.
Wonderful, thank you. And Cornerstone, Gilbert.
Good day, everyone. I'm Gilbert Mendoza from Cornerstone Information Technology. Thank you, Capensys, for hosting today and having Cornerstone as part of your panel. It's a very timely topic, so grateful for that. Cornerstone is a dynamic technology company celebrating its 15th year this year, and we're growing. We have a wide array of expertise to bring to a very vertical legal client base, as well as non-legal as well. So we bring a lot to the table in many different respects. So we do provide a wide range of, iManage with regard to work, records manager, security policy manager, threat manager, etc., and all the parts that go with those technologies. We do, from desktop refreshes in both physical and virtual environments. We do NetScaler work, Microsoft Office 365, Azure, expertise, cybersecurity assessments and remediations. We handle procurements. We also provide managed services, and we do disaster recovery as a service. So those are some of the things that we do. We are partners with iManage, or gold partner with Citrix, Microsoft, Cisco, and VMware partners as well. And I'm very happy to be here today to share Cornerstone's experience with your web audience, so thanks.
Thank you, Gilbert. And let's hand it over to iManage, Brian Jones, for an update on iManage. What is the status? What's going on? Let us know.
Thanks, John. One thing that is not visible here because it's so new is our newest product line, which is called iManage Comply. And Comply encompasses conflicts management as well as new business intake. Comply, folded in with the other solutions that you see here, supports our vision, which is to have the same man-machine partnership and synergies that users have historically received from Office productivity suites. So Work, Govern, Insight, Share, and now Comply are now giving users the end-to-end capability to securely manage information throughout its life cycle. Next slide. Let's unpack these solutions because there are a lot of them. The first we have is what most people here are familiar with, and that's iManage Work, and that gives you the mobile now capability of managing your documents and your emails via a cloud interface. It can still be on-prem, but the interface is browser-driven at this point. The next one is Share. Share allows you to securely file and send and share outside of your business. The capability to do this in a secure manner is a game changer. And the way that you can set it up and maintain it works hand in glove with iManage Work. Next, we've got iManage Insight. Insight is pan-enterprise search, but it takes it one step further by giving you knowledge linking. What that does is it gives you the ability to link the results of a search, of an enterprise search, to the subject matter experts in your firm or business. And then the last thing that we have is iManage Govern. This allows you to manage through records, inside security detection, as well as need-to-know security and archiving. This allows you to manage your information throughout its life cycle. So these four solutions, along with Comply, which would be to the left of Work, because it covers new business intake as well as conflicts management. The five solutions comprise the iManage solution suite. Next slide. What we focused on the most here during today's discussion is going to be WorkTen. It's designed by users for user. What are the principal architects and product managers of WorkTen? Ravinesh Lal is on the call with us for advanced Q&A, but this product was developed by talking to legal knowledge workers trying to develop a keen understanding of how they work and how they would like to work in 2018, 2019, and beyond. What it gives you is a mobile-first user experience. Irrespective of the platform, it is optimized for mobile, but it works great on the desktop too. It's fully integrated just like our classic products are with Outlook, Office, and even Gmail. You have the ability to leverage the integrations that are critical to a legal operation, that's redlining and metadata scrubbing. And it gives you embedded contextual help. So as you need to learn a feature, it stokes adoption by giving you just-in-time help. So this is a solution that gets the IT department's face off of the technology, and it's driven more like a mobile device or a social media application. Next.
And can you share with us, Brian, what the roadmap is?
Sure. So first, a little history. This year so far, what we've done is we've implemented 10.1, which gives you a very strong offline experience. So from within the mobile application, you can very easily download and upload documents in an offline mode. We've implemented the Mac version of this, which is a game changer for those users who are devoted to using Mac. And for our cloud solutions, we have the BYO key, bring your own key, or customer supplied encryption. Moving to this summer, we've now deployed and rolled out our Raven indexer, and it is now available for installation from our help center. Auto updates. Remember, this solution is designed to be updated very similar to a mobile phone. So the auto update now gives firms the capability of downloading an update, testing it, and then rolling it out to their users at a specified interval. This keeps IT away from having to touch every desktop. And then we have the version 2 of our cloud API, which allows our partners and our customers to develop more integrations. In the near term, you should expect to see in 10.3 bulk operations, bulk document operations, as well as navigation and view improvements. And then iManage Drive, that is the next generation offline capability. It will allow you to copy documents to matters with a user experience that's very similar to a C drive or a K drive. This is very helpful for people who are not going to adopt work no matter what. So more tools in addition to that will be coming in 19. Back over to you, John.
Thank you, Brian. So let's ask our experts some of the fundamental questions about iManage to help inform you so that you can make decisions for your firm. And as Marion said, as we're going through this, feel free to ask any questions by writing them into the questions box. So first question, what new features are available in file site and desk site? So we're looking at the bedrock elements of iManage. Gilbert, you want to give us some thoughts on this?
Sure. I mean, some of the features that I'm finding with customers that they're very excited about, keeping in mind that some features are new to them because they're doing an upgrade, which is where I enter into their environment, and not necessarily new to iManage. But flexible folders is a huge one, which allows for a leaner workspace at provisioning when a case is opened, and that's a real big one that people are excited about. Trash, being able users to be able to delete items into a recycle bin, and that being the destruction of those being managed by IT. So that's a nice, as opposed to having a deletions folder or something in your workspace design. For the hybrid users, there's the timeline and the journaling that's dependent on WorkTen. There's also the document comparison tool, which if you don't have it in your budget for a third-party comparison tool, iManage version uses Word's compare engine, which is great. Yeah, those are some of the things that I'm finding are the big things from my customers.
And Jennifer, I know you wanted to also had some thoughts about this. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so we definitely see some improvements to those standard desktop clients. One of the things that we've seen most used is the save and sync feature. So instead of having to wait until you close a document to sync your changes back up to the system, there's now a save and sync button. And you can see that on the screen now. There's also co-authoring, where if you are a firm or a department that uses co-authoring, it now allows you to integrate that co-authoring directly with iManage, and this is through the Microsoft co-authoring process.
Great, thanks. So next question, why would a firm want to remain or retain, if they already have desk site and file site, why would they want to retain the desk site and file site platforms or clients as they move forward? David, you want to tell us what you are finding?
Yeah, sure. What we're finding is lots of clients are looking to perhaps move to a version 10 backend to get more resilience at the server side of things. But because of the kind of known quantity of people being familiar with a file site or a desk side client, some people are quite happy to sort of stay with a version of desk site and file site that they're familiar with, so it helps from a training and education point of view, but they get some of the benefits from the 10 backend. Sometimes that's cultural, because people want to sort of they sort of know what they know, and we all know that lawyers love attending training and love change. So sometimes that's as simple as that, really, and it's more difficult to perhaps to encourage them to perhaps go to a 10 client as yet. Although we are seeing some changes there, which is good. But other things that hold people back are third-party integrations, for example, that legacy systems that are built into their desktops, which prevent them perhaps from moving to newer versions. So sometimes that's a driver to stay with what they know and maybe being held back by legacy. There are functional limitations in WorkTen sometimes with some of the Outlook views. It's not a major factor, but sometimes that prevents people from perhaps looking at the changes there. And lastly, there's not necessarily always the budget and appetite for upgrades, because the cultural change to go to WorkTen client, it's a new look and feel. It's very sexy and very funky, but it would require perhaps a different attitude and education to really embrace it. So sometimes just doing the WorkTen backend is the initial platform for people before driving things forward.
Thank you, David. Gilbert, anything you'd like to add? You're seeing why some of your clients are keeping the desk site, file site, even while they're rolling out WorkTen?
Yeah, I think I would say that the continuity is really the biggest part. So it's really culture. We really Cornerstone takes a real holistic approach to it. And for some firms, it's really a great thing to go to WorkTen. Other firms, I have one client I'm thinking of in particular, where I used to work for them in the 90s, and the managing partner of the firm now was a first year back then, and they had FileSite, an older version of FileSite back then, and many of the people at that firm have been using it since the 90s, right? So that change for that firm may not be the best thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that that continuity with respect to the culture of that firm is a question. The other thing that's a benefit is that you do have, if you stick with it, you can use the web client, right? So you can ease WorkTen in as well for those users that, if the firm isn't willing to put it in as a client, and this happens to be a Citrix shop, so it's a little bit more of a challenge to do two different images. But they can use WorkTen in the web version. So that would be a reason to keep it, in my opinion.
Thanks, Gilbert. From a training perspective, I can tell you that Capensys, we've rolled out quite a few implementations of WorkTen, and I would mirror that WorkTen really, the user interface is so compelling. The best way to promote it is to let the people within the organization who love it self-promote it. So instead of pushing it onto people as a requirement, consider the alternative that you let it grow and germinate in the departments where there might be that type of an interest. And then as they see the value in it, they're going to talk to their peers over lunch, and they'll say how great this is, and it will, by its own nature, grow. Why would a firm, moving to the back end, why would a firm want to upgrade the back end, the server side, to WorkTen? Jennifer, what do you advise your clients?
So we advise all of our clients move to WorkTen and do it as soon as you can, because even if you don't touch the client, you're going to gain a huge number of advantages. We could probably spend the whole hour just talking about this, so I'm going to go through it quickly, but certainly if the other panelists want to to add something, feel free. So most importantly, you can keep your classic client when you upgrade to the 10 backend, and it provides a greater level of security as well as improved resiliency without impacting the users at all. If you want to implement some of the newer core products of iManage, things like Share, Insight, Security Policy Manager, the newest versions of Govern, they either will only work or will work better if you are on the 10 backend. There are a lot of WorkTen features. I think a lot of these were mentioned already that you can access only if you're on the WorkTen platform, even if you're still using your classic client. So things like flexible folders, trash, ad hoc workspace creation, journaling. We'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, but journaling really allows you to recover prior instances of your users' documents without them having to save it as a new version. And without deploying the front end, your administrators can still access the journaling function. iManage Control Center is a great new interface for the administrative functions around iManage. If you're in the cloud, this is the way that you access your user management, your workspace management, your application management. But even if you have an on-premise implementation, it gives you a lot more flexibility as to how you want to administer your system and a much easier user interface than the traditional admin console. You get access to the WorkTen web interface, so even if, as was just mentioned, you want to deploy that gradually, you can. And then the improved mobility is a very big deal. Having the 10 backend allows you to get to that any device, anywhere model. I believe somebody previously mentioned the new REST API that comes with WorkTen. This allows for a lot more development around and customizations around your system if needed. And then finally, if you want to run the Raven indexer, you are going to get the best results on, and I believe you have to be on the WorkTen backend. So as you can see, lots of good reasons to go to the WorkTen backend. We've found these upgrades to be pretty straightforward without having many downsides at all.
Thanks, Jennifer. That's a lot to sink your teeth into. A compelling reason to go to the back end, even if you don't go to the front end. That being said, let's talk about why one might want to go to the front end. Although first, let's take a look here. This is an example of the journaling. Do you want to spend a second just explaining what it means to folks who might not have seen this, Jennifer? You've got a document on the left and a journaling on the right.
So if Brian were working on this document and he did a save and sync, at that point, it saves a copy of this document on the back end. Now, it doesn't create a new version, but it allows you through the WorkTen client to go into the system and pull up one of those prior documents. So we have found that this can be very helpful for those calls of, oh, I hit save and I meant to make it a new document, but I saved over the old document, or my system crashed and I can't find the changes I made, or all of those types of calls. And if you have the front end, the users can actually go in and recover the document themselves. The one caveat I would say to this is that you have to be careful about how you're sizing your system and your storage, because it does lead to obviously larger needs on that end.
Thanks. And just to comment there, it's the save and sync button that does this, folks. So that's one of the new buttons that's available. And we were teaching recently in a rollout that we did. Hey, whenever you're going to hit save, just hit save and sync, because it's so much more functionality built in with save and sync.
And John, can I just make one comment on that? You can default the client so the save is a save and sync. So that is also an option on the client.
Then I would suggest you do it. Moving on. David, what are your thoughts? Why would a firm want to upgrade to the front end, the WorkTen experience from the user side? Tell us what you're promoting.
Okay, well, obviously there's a bunch of good reasons, really. I think Brian mentioned earlier that the kind of WorkTen interface was built very much with lawyers in mind. It was designed with lots of input from lawyers and attorneys, as you guys say in the States. So the look and feel of the WorkTen client has been built around that feedback to make searching much more personalized, much faster, much more intuitive for people. So the personalized search is definitely a win. The look and feel of it itself is, I work in IT and it does look sexy. I'm sorry, it does. It's very, very bright. It's very in your face. It's intuitive, and it's the look and feel is different from FileSite, which I think is almost traditional kind of Windows kind of file architecture to some degree. This is very, very different with the filters and the searching. It's got drag and drop from Outlook into iManage, which you could do to some degree with the current versions. The mobile-friendly design is very, very good because you can pick it up on a web browser, you can pick it up on your phone, on your iPad, your laptop, whatever, much more easier than presently. And if you've got the iManage window up on the right-hand side of your screen, because the new version sits on the right-hand side of the screen rather than the FileSite and desktop, so the FileSite being on the left-hand side, you can actually undock that screen and put it onto a second screen. So you can have your iManage totally on a second screen and your Outlook and your other apps on your primary screen. So that's really good. It's a thinner client from a point of view of Outlook performance. It's not as embedded, it's not as heavy, so therefore there's less drag on Outlook performance. We're seeing that's a very popular thing as well. And you can gradually move to a WorkTen interface, having a hybrid model. You can have some people initially on the kind of FileSite model and move groups and pilot groups gradually across to a WorkTen environment and get them on board. And as John said, get evangelists and get champions around the firm saying how well they enjoy it and like it, and build it up from that way round. So yeah, smaller desktop footprint. And easier feature upgrades because the way it's been built with the backend as well and REST APIs are going to make upgrades much easier. And finally, obviously, importing folders are easier from a Windows drive with WorkTen. So lots of great stuff as to why you'd want to go to the WorkTen.
Thank you very much, David. And what I'm showing up here is what David described, where you have your Outlook on the left and on the iManage panel on the right here.
Yeah.
So it's right there in Outlook, but unlike in the older version or in the traditional, as David referred to as thicker clients, it's much lighter and has less impact on the actual performance itself. Any other thoughts from Jennifer or Gilbert on this question here?
No, I think you covered the main points.
Yeah, I think we can move on, and I'll cover most of it in the next slide.
There you go. Thanks. So what are firms saying about the WorkTen client, the ones you've rolled it out to? Jennifer, tell us what you have found.
Yeah, so I would echo what was all of the things that were just mentioned. We do find that lawyers tend to love it. We say if you can learn to use Amazon to buy things, then you can learn to use WorkTen. It is intuitive and responsive, and one of the biggest improvements we see is to some of the searching, the presenting of the information, the dynamic filters. So it now has a concept of things like personalized search results. So by default, it's only going to show me things related to the clients and matters that I recently worked on. Now, with the click of a button, I can expand that and see the whole database, but for the majority of searches a person does, it's going to, by default, narrow the results to be more relevant. It also has some built-in things that attorneys have been asking for forever, like show me all the matters that we have open for a particular client, or it's nice that I have my matter work list, but I really want to see all of the matters that I've worked on in the last month. And so it will do those things and do it well. I will say that the majority of the hesitancy we have seen around deploying the new interface is really around that nervousness to change, and still around some of the power users who are used to being able to sort by columns and manage things for their attorneys and really do some more of the advanced features that some of the desktop clients allow. But I will say the biggest win that I think we've seen in the firms and legal departments where we've deployed the 10 client is that it really allows for that concept of any device, anywhere. It is the same experience whether I am on my firm computer, my iPhone, my Google tablet, and I don't need to learn how to use a new system. And the fact that it's maximized for touch means that whether I have a mouse or not, I can still interact with my iManage document.
Thanks, Jennifer. Brian, I'm curious, anything that you'd like to add to that? Obviously, the integrators are talking about it from the perspective of after the fact, once the projects are going. What are you seeing and what are you hearing from the clients that you do your demos for?
The interface and the experience overall is still very new, and the legal profession is sometimes a bit hesitant about deploying a new capability. That said, I have firsthand experience with those firms who do deploy WorkTen, and those that I see simply deploy it. We simply train the users a little bit on WorkTen and let them have at it. The brilliant bit to the solution, especially since many of our existing firms may be on our classic clients, is that there's little to no risk in doing it that way. If you're on 10 and there's a classic client, just show the firm the new capability, and invariably the lawyers, especially the high output lawyers, latch on to the technology. One of the tricks that we recommend is to try and find the 4 or 5 key features that you know will resonate with a particular area law of practice group, and then lead with that, and then just step back and watch the show. It is that amazing. The fact that the technology updates automatically gives the customers and the users confidence that if they give us the feedback about their experience, whatever features that are the most desired will be forthcoming. And like Jennifer said, the ability to work anywhere on a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device is huge.
Thank you, Brian. Now I'd like to actually turn it to talking about what is the experience that you as panelists have rolling it out. We've talked about what are the compelling reasons. We've talked about the pros and cons of upgrading the back end and the front end. Now let's hear what we might call some trench warfare stories. Gilbert, what has your experience been rolling out WorkTen? Can you share that with our attendees?
Sure. Yeah, it's actually generally been very good. So I was very lucky on my first WorkTen. I had a number of clients that I did upgrades for that weren't ready to do it. And so when I got to do it for the first time, it was a firm that did not have a DMS. They had one user it was an in-house counsel department that had used iManage in a different iteration of himself. And so there was no baggage with going forward with it. So that was actually very exciting for me because I didn't have to sort of fight with the terminologies. I kind of had to fight with it within myself because I've used the old one for so long, but it was a great challenge. So the setting up piece was very similar. So you still do the workspace design and the process and designing the features in the client that you want. It's different because they're using XML configs instead of using registry configs, which is actually a little bit easier as well. And some of that can be loaded up into Control Center and then deployed from there. So the setting up was all, pretty standard in terms of, how you would set it up in a classic client environment. But the user experience itself for this particular customer who had some kind of antiquated repositories that were very, the very thing that we love about WorkTen or iManage in matter centricity is that there's no form to fill out, right? So they were coming from their version of this. And so the idea that they can just drop it into a folder or drag things here and there they loved it. They absolutely loved it. The idea that, the whole point of the DMS is content sharing. They didn't have document versioning in their prior, we know that that's not a new feature, but for a new customer, it's exciting for them. I mean, the email management, the ability to write the emails through the WorkTen GUI, if you were, just on a website, it's not even Outlook dependent in that sense. They had masses of non-searchable PDFs, so this was a cloud customer that had OCR, so that was an enormous benefit from a search perspective. So the experience was really, really good. I still don't have a hybrid customer. Cornerstone does. I don't personally have it from one of my clients, but I do have that coming up, so I'm really excited about the hybrid challenge.
All right, let's talk about the question that many of you probably have been asking. Should you stick with on-prem or should you move to the cloud? What are some of the pros and the cons? And as I understand, this could be a webinar all on its own, so let's take this from sort of a 10,000-foot view. David, what do you tell your clients? What would be the reason for going with cloud versus on-prem?
Yes, you're absolutely right, John. It's a topic that could easily demand its own webinar. And what we don't tell our clients. Obviously, we work with and we advise our clients and look at their environment, look at their culture, and try and work out what's going to be the best fit for them. Because there are lots of pros and lots of cons to both solutions. We're seeing probably a 60-40 split at the moment towards going more cloud, which is encouraging. Cloud itself will. As the slide suggests, includes all the bells and whistles. You get all the kind of hardware, all the servers, and all the good stuff built in with the cloud. So, for example, you can have a classic cloud implementation, which will allow you to have all the things that you want pretty quickly at a good license cost per user. But then if you want to add in things like security policy manager and threat manager and all that kind of good stuff, again, the additional cost of those licenses isn't too great per user. So you can actually have a whole suite of the iManage modules at a very good price. If you want to do it on-premise, again, as some firms like to, because maybe they're not so cloud should we say cloud aware or a bit more sort of conservative in their approach, that's of course possible, and you can control things more. Maybe from an on-premise point of view, you can have access to the SQL. You can change things on-premise more easily. But there is additional hardware to consider, because the WorkTen 10.2 backend requires certain servers, including things like mobility servers and preview servers, which can be quite bulky servers to put in initially, because they're rendering images whilst you're trying to view documents on the move or in the office. So the additional hardware is something to consider. Along with that, if you're in the cloud, for example, you get all your upgrades and your maintenance windows and everything done for you. So that's really, really good. And everybody who's got an on-premise solution will know that the more servers you put into an IT environment that have to be patched and upgraded and maintained regularly, it just adds to the list of other tasks that you have to do as an IT person. Someone has actually asked a question this afternoon: does a cloud implementation work with file site and desk side? And yes, it does. You could have a 10.2 backend with a file site client, for example, and you could put that into the iManage cloud. So I guess with anything in life, it's about sitting down with the customer, finding out their culture, finding out what's on their radar, and discussing what's best and advising them on their exact needs, because no one size fits all. But we are seeing a more, I guess, more of a push to people moving to the cloud and taking the benefits of the cloud approach. And certainly things like high availability, business continuity are much more beneficial by moving to the cloud.
Thank you, David. As I said, we could have a whole webinar just on that. Jennifer, anything you wanted to add to that? Jennifer? If not, I'll move on. Okay.
Sorry, I'm talking muted. So I was just saying that we are also seeing a large increase in the number of clients who are ready and going to the cloud, which is a big change from even 2 years ago. And what we recommend to our clients who are currently on-prem is that if you have a hardware refresh coming up, that's a good time to examine if it makes sense financially, staffing-wise, or even performance-wise to move into the cloud. iManage has a high level of security on their systems that especially a lot of our small and mid-sized firms are not able to implement on their own, which is another good reason to go to the cloud. On the flip side, you do lose your direct SQL access. So some of our much larger firms have a little bit more hesitancy because they are used to being able to do instant queries and things like that. But the cloud is definitely a very viable option and worth looking into, especially for people who are moving other systems like email to the cloud.
And last, this is sort of a summary of it. Brian, anything you'd like to add that either David or Jennifer didn't add in regards to continuity, security, performance, or cost of ownership?
I think they gave an excellent overview of why the iManage Cloud. The only thing I would add is that it frees your technology staff to think about the way users work instead of managing the bits. Additionally, smaller shops and corporate legal departments that don't necessarily have the chops to manage our solutions, which are becoming more and more sophisticated on the back office side. I know firsthand because I certify all of the engineers. So, you know, the amount of technical capability and the amount of devices that you have to make the solution work have increased. So that's another thing that you should consider when you debate going on-prem versus cloud. You know, and I'll just say one more thing about business continuity, and that is, you know, in terms of uptime, just take 99 and then add some decimal thereafter, and you have, you know, the uptime of this solution. So if you have quality internet access, the solution is always available from any locale. And if there is downtime, it's an absolute minimum and it's scheduled well in advance.
Thanks, Brian. Next question. So a firm is seriously considering upgrading to WorkTen. What are the steps that they should incorporate into their technology plan as they prepare for this? Gilbert, can you help us with this one?
Sure. So first of all, you know, I kind of take a holistic approach to it. So you need to understand the scope. You know, is it a server upgrade only? We've discussed different options here, or a desktop refresh, and all of the, you know, physical equipment that might be, if you're on-prem, involved with that. You have to review all your integration points on the server, if you have third-party tools, if you have, you know, productivity tools on the client as well. If you're on-prem, you know, in the cloud as well, what products are you licensed for? So, you know, people see demos and there are, you know, different modules that need to be licensed. So you need to make sure that the expectation is licensed. A big one is that your SQL servers need to be at a minimum of 2012. I've had a couple of customers that were still on 2008 and we had to delay an upgrade for them because they needed more time to prep that. I think it's a great time to review workspace design, and depending on the scope, as I said above, you know, it's a good time to ask, you know, is our workspace design good? Do we want to refresh that? Do we want to then add flexible folders or different features? So you need to, you know, understand what's available in WorkTen that they're maybe not using, that you can add to their mix. Authentication methods, a big thing to, you know, a lot of customers that are upgrading are still using trusted authentication, right? So SAML is definitely recommended. If you're going to use the web version outside of the firm, you really want to consider, do you have SAML set up? I know Cornerstone, we've helped some of our customers set that up as well. And then you have to consider how you deploy software. What's your plan for the deployment? Testing, I think the slide has, configuration and testing. Piloting is huge with anything. And, migration, if you're going to the cloud, that whole process of moving that up. But other things to review, and I say this because I have customers that I've had to remediate things like, what is your client matter intake? I still have people who are manually inputting matters into work. And so there are tools for directory sync that some firms are not using. So you have people manually entering data in, which, obviously opens it up for errors. So those are the types of things, but really understanding the firm's goal with work and deciding what the best client approach is going to be, whether it's going to be, WorkTen servers and then a classic client or a hybrid, or going directly to WorkTen only. So, with the features and what features you're gonna put in place. One thing that I've done a number of IRM implementations lately that were upgrades. So really considering, metadata in your work environment as it goes with IRM was something for anyone that is considering that you need to think about as well. So, and of course, finally, our training needs. You really need to understand, what kind of training you're going to need for the type of upgrade that you're doing.
And that's a perfect segue. But before we segue into training, David, anything finally to add to that before I take over control of the mic and talk about the importance of training?
Well, it's very interesting because just prior to coming on the webinar this afternoon, we've been chatting with a client here in London town about exactly that. It's about their steps to upgrade to WorkTen, and I echo much of what Gilbert just said there, but I think the things that you need to consider also are, where does a project like this sit within your IT roadmap? How important is it to dovetail that in with perhaps an upgrade to Office or an upgrade to your Windows environment? Because these kind of projects, the WorkTen Backend, for example, can sit very nicely with those kind of upgrades and actually give a much richer experience to the actual user base. And I think the other thing really for me, which will segue nicely into yourself, John, is that WorkTen, as we've discovered, client-wise, is a bit of a cultural change. It looks and feels different. So I think training, to me, has been very important for the customers that we've migrated and updated. So I think that should lead you nicely into talk to people about how you should approach your training.
Thanks, David. Nothing like having a great segue. What training approach should I take? And this, of course, I means everybody on the call here. In order to successfully roll out any new DMS, we really want to make sure that we have wide user adoption. So let's look at how we suggest doing that and how we have done that with our clients. We really say treat WorkTen almost like it's a different DMS, because from a user perspective, it really is. You really need to develop a comprehensive communication and change management and training plan. There is a big upside, but it is a significant change. You need to guide them so that they don't struggle and get frustrated with the new interface. I know we say that it's like if you can shop on Amazon, you can use WorkTen, but it is a completely different way of looking at things. So especially with some of the legacy folks who, as we heard before, have been on iManage since 1990s, we want to make sure that transition is smooth and easy for them. It really is feature packed. And if you don't really do your homework and align your training to the different personas in the firm, what you're going to end up doing is teaching a lot of people about a lot of things that really is unnecessary for them. So what we strongly suggest is teaching by personas or workflows. And that means getting to know your users a little better than maybe you do. Now, there are absolutely certainly people in the firm who do, but maybe you in the IT department need to reach out to somebody. Maybe it's the training department, maybe it's somebody like the secretarial services manager or the paralegals manager or different practice group managers. But get to know how they work, and that's how you train them. Train the people on what they need to know and show them the things that are going to help make their life easier and that align with what are some of the great benefits that we've talked about. And when you do that, what you end up doing is creating a win-win. You're giving them what they need, you're showing them what's the advantages that are there for them. They then start to put that into place. And as Brian said, once somebody starts liking it and they start talking about it, then the word spreads like wildfire and it moves from there. So take training seriously because it really does make a difference. Last questions, as we have about 5 minutes left. What should firms consider prior to an upgrade? And at the end, what we're going to do is tell you about the next webinar that we have in line, which is going to be happening in November. But let's wrap up with this. What should firms consider prior to an upgrade? Jennifer, you want to give us your 2 minutes on this one?
Sure. As with any technology project, the first question to ask yourself is, what business problem are we trying to solve, or what are we trying to accomplish? Are you trying to be more efficient? Are you trying to solve a pain point? Because until you know that, it's all the bells and whistles look great, but it's difficult to determine what should we be implementing. So the first thing that we always recommend is take a look at what are your business requirements. Once you do that, take a look at your current version and see how far behind you might be, or if you're on a completely different system, what does iManage offer that can speak directly to those business needs? Often an upgrade can address a lot of your pain points. With that, we also recommend that this is a great time to relook at your workspace design. A lot of the clients we work with, their designs are 5, 7, even 10 years old, and the business of law changes over time. So often updating the workspace design and just giving people some of the new functionalities and the more stable, quicker system solves a lot of issues that firms have. Look at your level of user adoption. It might be that along with the upgrade, that's really an area that you need to focus on. Do you want to be cloud or on-premise? What third-party applications are you using, and are they compatible with WorkTen? Again, a year ago, this was a big issue. We've now seen that with the exception of a few, almost all of the legal providers and other software providers are now compatible with WorkTen. This is also, as mentioned, a really good time to look at how you're authenticating. We're seeing a lot of people going to the SAML-based authentications. How mobile is your workforce? Very few firms have mobility implemented successfully, but with the new 10 platform, it's much easier to accommodate the mobile workforce as they need to. And then also, what other iManage applications might it make sense to implement along with this? You know, if your indexer is slow, maybe you look at going to Raven. Security Policy Manager, Threat Manager, adding on the records management piece. All of those are things that you should consider, because if you look at all of the systems holistically, you'll have a more successful upgrade.
Thanks, Jennifer. So what is next for you, for all of us? What we'd like to do is have you, if you haven't already, enter any questions that you may have into the questions box. We're going to gather up and group your questions, and believe me, there have been a lot of them that have been submitted. We have a follow-up webinar on November 16th at the same time, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, 1600 Greenwich Mean Time. And that's going to be a rapid Q&A of the questions that you have given us. We're going to keep the webinar open for about 5 extra minutes for folks if they want to add those kinds of questions. And what we'd really like to leave with you is the idea that between iManage and the integrators and Capensys, we are here to help you with strategy consulting, integration services, training and support services, helping you with the project and the change management and anything else that you need for the program itself. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, here's how you can do so. This is the contact information for not only Capensys, but Adaptive Solutions, Tiger Eye Consulting, Cornerstone.IT, and iManage. And with that, it is 12 o'clock on the dot. Anything that you would like to add, Brian, by way of closing this out?
The only thing I would say is listen to what users hate and use that as the impetus to implement the solution. Think about what their complaints are. I can never find my stuff. Filing is too hard. It takes me 10 minutes to log in and start work from my hotel room. I need to work securely from home. Those are cues as an entree for you to bring WorkTen into your business. Thanks, John.
Thank you, everybody. As I said, we'll keep this open for a couple more minutes for people if they want to ask questions. And other than that, we look forward to seeing everybody again on November 16th. And in the meantime, goodbye all. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for being on the panel.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Capensys, for hosting us.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.